And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Tuesday morning's flying weather showing a lot of IFR here, spreading right in across all of the southeast coast up to about Yakutat, and then areas of marginal VFR with some areas of IFR and areas of VFR here across southern Alaska. VFR from the Aleutian Range and on the entire Alaska Peninsula, Bering Sea and the Aleutians, northern Bering Sea, some marginal VFR that extends into the Yukon Delta there and then kind of follows the Yukon River up on the north side there all the way into the southern slopes of the Brooks Range here. Some more VFR for the north slope and then marginal VFR for the Arctic coast. And for the afternoon, the Arctic coast becomes VFR as well as the north slope. Brooks Range down into the Kobuk-Koyukuk Valley, some IFR there, slipping on down into the northern Yukon Delta, and some IFR for the western Alaska Range for the afternoon. Mostly marginal VFR now for the North Gulf Coast and Prince William Sound, Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island. Big improvement here over the Panhandle, becoming VFR most areas, and still VFR for the Aleutians, Pribilofs, Nunivak Island, much of the Bering Sea. And that doesn't change a whole lot for Wednesday morning. Some marginal VFR coming into the far western Aleutians there, but for the most part, the Aleutian chain, Alaska Peninsula into Bristol Bay stays VFR. That includes the Pribilof Islands, St. Matthew Island, right up to the Bering Strait there, marginal VFR, and that covers the Chukchi Sea as well as the western Arctic coast and north slope. With the IFR here along the Brooks Range, especially the south slopes, in toward Kotzebue, Selawik there, Noatak Valley southward into the Yukon Delta, and some IFR here for the central Alaska Range, IFR Prince William Sound, otherwise marginal VFR, right on down along the southeast coast, VFR over the inside waters. Then some of that marginal VFR Wednesday afternoon finds its way inland or into the inside waters a little bit there for the Panhandle, IFR for the North Gulf Coast, into western Prince William Sound, maybe up to the Talkeetna's western Copper River Basin. Otherwise, Matanuska Valley, marginal VFR, Susitna Valley IFR, and pretty good for Cook Inlet, and good VFR for Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay, the Alaska Peninsula, Eastern Aleutians, and Pribilofs. Some IFR out here over the western part of the state, and a narrow band of IFR here sliding eastward across Adak and Atka. And for passes for tomorrow, VFR for Adigan and Anatuvik, for Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR for both those passes as well as rainy. Windy though, marginal VFR. Isabel, same forecast, marginal VFR at times. Mentasta should be VFR. And Tanita, occasionally marginal. Portage, same thing, occasional marginal VFR there. And Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR becoming VFR. Freezing levels at the surface, way up to St. Lawrence Island, back down to Nunivak Island, and eastward here along the North Gulf Coast. And again, 2,000 to 4,000 feet over the southeast coast. And as far as icing goes, best chance of any significant icing here will be over the Cook Inlet area, maybe into the Susitna Valley. Could see some considerable moderate rime icing there with isolated moderate extending down to Kodiak Island, westward across the Alaska Range there, Kuskokwim Valley, all the way to the lower Yukon River area. And looking at the jet stream, 33,000 feet. Trough out here over the eastern Bering Sea. Southwest flow about 60 to 70 knots toward the central interior. A little bit stronger here, west-southwest 75 knots over the southeast coast. Out to the west, this jet just south of the Aleutians. And for 9,000 feet, we've got south becoming southwest winds, 50 to 65 knots here over southern south central Alaska. And again, the strongest westerlies out here along and just south of the Aleutians. And high pressure building in over the northern Panhandle. They're making for light wind conditions. 3,000 feet, same thing. Light winds for the southeast coast into the southeast interior. But gradient between this low and this high, giving south winds anywhere from 35 to 50 knots here across south central Alaska, especially the Susitna Valley, Kenai Peninsula area down to Kodiak Island. Lighter here along the west coast. And west-northwest, 35 knots across the eastern Aleutians, westerlies 45 knots out over the north-central Bering Sea. Turbulence-wise, light to isolated moderate turbulence for eastern Aleutians and around the Adak area. Otherwise, look for considerable moderate turbulence here for southern Alaska, right on down to Kodiak Island, Kenai Peninsula, to Prince William Sound. Back to the western Alaska range there to Iliamna Lake.